Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of 2 Kings, the first chapter. And in this chapter, we see the death of Ahab, right, in the beginning of the reign of Ahaziah, his son. Okay, and pretty much the continuation of where we left off in the book of First Kings with how Ahab died and how the Lord had set him up. So 2 Kings chapter 1 verse 1, then Moab rebelled against Israel after the death of Ahab. Because remember, at that time we had them all under subjection. And Ahaziah fell down through a lattice in his upper chamber that was in Samaria and was sick. All right, you can look up, a lattice, see what that looks like, the design of that. But when it says he was sick, right, it doesn't mean he fell down and then caught a cold, you know what I'm saying, or he caught a virus or something. No, sick meaning that he got injured, right, probably like severely injured here. And he sent messengers and said unto them, go inquire of Baalzebub, the god of Ekron, whether I shall recover of this disease. But the angel of the Lord Yahweh said to Elijah the Tishbite. So when Ahaziah sent his messengers, the Lord also came to Elijah and sent him a message, saying, arise, go up to meet the messengers of the king of Samaria, and say unto them, is it not because there is not a God in Israel, that ye go to inquire of Baalzebub, the god of Ekron? So, what happened to me? And when you read this in something like NLT, right, specifically that portion, it says, is there no God in Israel? Why are you going to Baalzebub, the god of Ekron, to ask whether the king will recover? So this is what the Lord told Elijah to go and tell those messengers, really to relay that message to Ahaziah. Now therefore, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, thou shalt not come down from that bed which thou art gone up, but shalt surely die. And Elijah departed. See, so basically, he's stuck on the bed, he's hurt, he's injured, and the Lord said, because you went to inquire of another god, a false god, a deity of the heathens, as to whether you're going to recover or not, just because of that, now you're cooked, you're done, now you're definitely going to die. So Elijah relays this message to the messengers, and when the messengers turned back onto him, so meaning when the messengers returned back to Ahaziah, he said unto them, why are ye now turned back? So what happened? Why are you coming back? And they said unto him, there came a man up to meet us, and said unto us, go, turn again unto the king that sent you, and say unto him, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, is it not because there is not a God in Israel, that thou sendest to inquire of Baalzebub, the god of Ekron? Therefore thou shalt not come down from that bed on which thou art gone up, but shalt surely die. And he said unto them, what manner of man was he, which came up to meet you, and told you these words? So pretty much, like, what did he look like? And they answered him, he was an hairy man, and girt with a girdle of leather about his loins. Yeah, I think it was leather. Yeah, it was definitely leather. Yeah. And he said, it is Elijah the Tishbite. So, I mean, they knew who Elijah was, right? Keep in mind that during the days of Ahaziah's father, Ahab, Elijah had caused it to not rain, right, by the power of the Lord. And so they knew who Elijah was. They knew what he looked like. And so when Ahaziah, he suspected that this might have been Elijah who said this. And so that's why he asked for that description to confirm. Then the king sent unto him a captain of 50 with his 50. So the captain of 50 with the 50 people that he was over. And he went up to him, and behold, he sat on the top of an hill. And he spake unto him, Thou man of God, the king hath said, Come down. So you can imagine, right? Though it's in like this sentence, thou man of God, the king hath said, Come down. In actuality, right, you can imagine either the tone or the pomp or the threatening demeanor in which he might have said this in. And the reason is because of how Elijah ends up responding to him. And Elijah answered and said to the captain of 50, If I be a man of God, then let fire come down from heaven and consume thee and thy 50. And there came down fire from heaven and consumed him and his 50. So you can imagine, right, the sort of like the energy that this guy was coming with was probably one of like, well, you either come down or we come and get you. And so Elijah called down fire from heaven. Now, this fire from heaven could very well have been actual, just like a ball of fire that just like dropped from the skies, but it could also have been like, if you visualize it, it could have been a laser being beamed down from a chariot. Because remember, the chariots of the Lord, right, are always around, the angels of the Lord encamping around us. So, it could it could very well have also been that when Elijah mentioned this or gave this command or this saying, that the angels that were around, maybe one in particular shot down a laser beam that ended up cooking this captain and his 50, similar to what we read about in 2nd Ezra 13 with the Yahushua, right? But all in all, you just use your imagination here, though it doesn't say it was a chariot, right? Verse 11, again also he sent unto him another captain of 50. So when the first one got burnt up, now you might ask yourself, if the captain and his 50 got burned up, who went to report to the king that the captain and his 50 got burned up? But when you think about it in a realistic sense, it obviously was not, like, it wouldn't have been just Elijah and the captain of this 50. And so Elijah's just chilling on this hill, and it's in a remote area, nobody there but him and this captain of 50. So they end up getting cooked and nobody can relay the message. No, realistically, there are people around, there are witnesses, and there are messengers and so on that sent the message back to the king saying, hey, this is what happened here. So upon this, the king sends another 50, right? Again, also he sent unto him another captain of 50 with his 50. Now, I don't know what it was going through his mind, but typically you hear that your captain and his host got burned up by fire from heaven. You don't usually send another host. You pretty much stop right there. But for the sake of the will of the Lord, it had to be so. So he sends another 50, and he answered and said unto him, O man of God, thus hath the king said, come down quickly. So pretty much come down right now. And Elijah answered and said unto him, If I be a man of God, let fire come down from heaven and consume thee and thy 50. And the fire of God came down from heaven and consumed him and his 50. And then before he knew it, he was also cooked. And he sent again a captain of the third 50 with his 50. And the third captain of 50 went up and came and fell on his knees before Elijah, and besought him and said unto him, O man of God, I pray thee, let my life and the life of these 50 thy servants be precious in thy sight. So he pretty much pleaded for their lives, and he didn't come in like an aggressive manner, but more in a humble manner. Behold, there came fire down from heaven and burnt up the two captains of the former 50s with their 50s. Therefore, let my life now be precious in thy sight. Now you can imagine the fear that was probably going through not only this captain, but his host, right? Having imagine you're part of this 50, or even the second round of 50, knowing what happened to the first, and you're in here, you don't have an option, so you're going. Verse 15, and the angel of the Lord Yahweh said unto Elijah, go down with him, be not afraid of him. And he arose and went down with him unto the king. And he said unto him, thus saith the Lord Yahweh. So Elijah ends up going with them, right? He gets to the king, Ahaziah, and then he relays the message directly to Ahaziah at this point. And he said unto him, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, for as much as thou hast sent messengers to inquire of Baalzebub, the god of Ekron, is it not because there is no God in Israel to inquire of his word? And it's worded in this way, but you get what he's saying here, right? Are you doing this as if, Israel doesn't have a God? It's like you have children, right? And it's lunchtime. They both get their plates. They're both eating. And then one of them stops eating his food to go and take some of the others. And then you may scold him. And then you may ask, why are you eating, trying to reach your siblings' food? Don't you already have yours? Right? So similarly, the Lord is saying, don't you already have a God here in Israel that you're going to seek another a false deity, a God of the heathens? Therefore, because of that, thou shalt not come down off that bed on which thou art gone up, but shalt surely die. So he died according to the word of the Lord Yahweh, which Elijah had spoken. And Jehoram reigned in his stead in the 2nd year of Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, because he had no son. Now, you had Jehoram, which this Jehoram that reigned in his stead was the brother of Ahaziah. Okay, so the brother of Ahaziah, named Jehoram, reigned in the stead of Ahaziah because now Ahaziah was dead. The northern kingdom, right, the king of the northern kingdom now is Jehoram. He came into power in the 2nd year of Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah. So you also had another king of Judah whose name was Jehoram. Okay, so you had 2 Jehorams, one of the northern kingdom, one of the southern kingdom. The one of the northern kingdom came up into power in the 2nd year of the Jehoram of the southern kingdom. And it says because he had no son, meaning Ahaziah, right, the brother of the northern Jehoram, put it like that, didn't have a son. So that's why his brother ended up coming up into power in the first place. Now the rest of the acts of Ahaziah, which he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel? And when you do some research, you'll find out, right, this Jehoram was like a son. He was one of the sons of Ahab, similar to Ahaziah. And that brings us to the end of the book of 2 Kings, the 1st chapter. Lord willing, this was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham, Recha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.